The Dubuque Area Arts Collective presents Ruix Podcast.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome to Ruix Podcast in association with the Dubuque Area Arts Collective. This is episode 4, and I'm going to go ahead and call this the Back to School episode for a couple of different reasons. One, everybody's gone back to school. It's that time of year, and, why not call it the Back to School episode? It's probably going to be the first one of September, possibly in late August. I'm not sure when this one's going to drop yet, but it's the back to school episode. Also, because I personally went back to school yesterday. Honestly, I went back to school like 3 years ago as an adult after having dropped out several years ago, back in 1997. And, I decided to go back a couple of years ago. But that's neither here nor there. Specifically, I'm speaking of my experience going back with the first day of school yesterday, and particularly with my brand new history class. I'm not going to get into it too much here because I'd like you to go ahead and read the story on my blog spot, the ruixzine.tumblr.com account, which I updated today with the full story. But suffice it to say, I nearly had a nervous breakdown, and I'm glad to be here to be doing this episode today. And the third reason is I love that movie with Rodney Dangerfield. That's another reason I want to call it the Back to School episode. Anywho, coming up, we got Music Series 5, DAAC Music Series 5, I should say. I know I've already talked about this a little bit, but, it hasn't happened yet, and I want to pimp it again because my guests last episode were Dredge, and they're going to be playing it along with Iowa City Doom Band Seath, who are loud and awesome, and Dubuque supergroup Venereal Crush, who are also loud and awesome, but in a very different way. And I'm excited about that show. It's going to be a good one. I also wanted to talk about the Salon show. Again, I know I've talked about it for the past couple of weeks, but there would literally be no DAAC without the first Salon show because it spawned the DAAC that I am representing here with this podcast and with the blog way back in 2012. So it's a big deal, and I want you all to go to it, as many as possible anyway. And that is going to be on September 5th, and it's going to feature my guest today, Mr. David Zollo out of Iowa City. David is an Iowa fixture. I mean, he's been playing, for years, and you'll find out exactly how long by listening to the interview. And he's also a very good friend of mine and my entire family's, and it was a great opportunity to get to talk to him and discover some things, about him that I didn't already know. I mean, that's basically what this podcast is about, is talking to my friends and some people that I don't, maybe have quite as much familiarity with, and learning about them, be it artists, musicians, what have you, from around Dubuque or regionally from around Iowa anyway. But this was a good talk, and I think you'll like it. And let's go check it out now.
Did you guys run into these kids that are doing this podcast and radio thing? They got a little old cabin cruiser and they're going down the Mississippi, and they're recording musicians along the way. I did hear something about that. I got him in touch with Will Whitmore, and they did him, and I did one in the Quad Cities, but then they did Danny Garcia up here. Sure. But they do like a fictional story then based on the things. But interesting, yeah. It's quite interesting, young guys doing something kind of cool.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I tried to get a hold of Will Whitmore too, and I got something from Team Whitmore.
Yeah.
You'll have to write him a letter and send it to his P.O. box.
What? What was it?
I'll do it. I'll write him a handwritten one.
Well, what was
That's
it?
what he wanted me to do.
Yeah, but I mean,
Team
What was it for? Team
just to
Whit?
come up and do the podcast with us.
And that's like his old lady, I'm sure. It's like
Yeah,
Chloe.
probably.
Chloe, Team Whitmore. I'm
Like
gonna
him and
give.
John are like friends.
I'm gonna give her
Yeah.
shit. Well, yeah, we were just talking about you. He was up. We got a new band that we started with the kid and Coop and this guy from Chicago. And I was talking to him about you, John. And yeah, I think he would be properly embarrassed if he knew that, and he should, as he should be.
Yeah, he probably would.
Maybe
You're
embarrass
right.
him a little
But you know what? No, I'll bust his balls. But it's the thing that sucks is.
Thanks, buddy.
These guys were, one of these dudes was a huge fan of his, one of these three guys that are going, and I was like, oh, you should get in touch with Will, because they said they were stopping in Keokuk.
Right.
I'm like, well, that makes, they're like, yeah, we can't get in touch with him, we've tried, and and it's starting to get to the point like it used to be for me with Greg Brown when I had Trailer Records, which was, I was getting middle-aged women, I'm not his pimp, I'm not going to fucking set up assignations for him like at hotels. But it's not like that with Will, but just like people that want to get in touch with him are like starting. That's like, come on, Will. It's gotten to a bad point if your old friends can't get in touch with you.
Social media.
No.
He
Yeah.
used snail mail, so she gave you like a P.O. box.
Well, but now his old lady started a Facebook thing, so now they do have it.
Right, yeah, exactly. Somebody answered.
Yeah, so that's bullshit. Like, that sucks, man. I'm sorry to hear that, but it's not the first time I've heard it either.
I will get him somehow.
I'll
Are we going?
See him next Saturday. So.
We are.
where is he playing up here? He
Oh,
just
yeah.
played at Codfish Hut.
Well, no, the farm party. Luke's farm
Oh,
party.
you guys are gonna
yeah,
be
we're gonna.
playing?
No, we're not playing, but we're gonna go down.
Shit, that would have been a.
See you down there.
I will see you guys down there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool. That's fucked up though. Well, yeah,
Okay.
give him shit there.
Yeah, we will. I'm gonna go ahead and start.
Yeah.
This is episode 4, Ruix podcast. My name is Jon Eagle, and with me today is my good friend David Zollo. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, John. How are you?
Good, man. Good. Thanks for being here. So I wanted to jump right in and say that you have always been sort of a fixture of Iowa music and arts, and like as long as I've been in bands and as long as I've been doing it. Were you born in Iowa? You were, right?
I was born
You
in
weren't.
Boston,
Oh,
actually.
you were born in Boston?
Yeah, which is how I have family. My grandma was lived in Camden.
I think
and
I
we
knew
talked
that,
Maine.
actually, yeah.
We have talked Maine.
We have. That's right. I
But yeah,
forgot about that.
My dad came to go to graduate school at the University of Iowa when I was, a couple years old,
Mhm.
and my folks really fell in love with Iowa and stayed. My mom is from Boston, New York, and Boston. My dad is from Connecticut, but they met at college in Boston.
Okay. I think my dad maybe was a Pennsylvania guy or something. I can't remember the exact history. That's sad of me, but I should probably look into that. But yeah, so like I said, as long as I've been playing, I've been seeing. I think maybe I go back to the Silver Dollar days.
The Silver Dollar
Yeah.
days, yes, indeed.
That's when I first started, or at least met you and started seeing you live. I was seeing flyers before that because I was always going to Iowa City. How long have you been playing in the Iowa area, just as, in full band or otherwise?
Late 91, early 92 is when I started doing it. And I did a few solo shows around Iowa City.
Okay.
And then I met a couple of the guys that I started High and Lonesome with.
Right.
And that was my first band. And actually I was at a place in Iowa City called The Sanctuary, which is still there, which I ended up playing
yeah.
a lot after that. To see Bo Ramsey and Kevin Gordon were doing a duo show, and I gave Bo a copy of like a 4-song cassette recorded literally on a boombox at one of our first
Got to
practices.
start somewhere.
And it was actually, the band was still a 4-piece. We were playing with this guy who was a aspiring classical guitarist on drums, who spent more time literally like playing with his hair and smoking cigarettes. Like
Really?
Oh yeah, you would have thrown shit at him, and brother Rick might have actually punched him upside the head on general
Yeah.
principles.
Well, I might have, back in those days, I might have actually played with him.
No, not this guy. But so we got him a demo tape, and there was like these 4 tunes that wound up being on the first record we did. So actually, like a week later, I got a call from Bo. Strangely, my dad was a writer's workshop graduate. That's the graduate program that he came to, the fiction workshop. And he was always a music lover and a music fanatic, really. And
Awesome.
so he had immediately, one of the reasons that my parents stayed in Iowa was because of how, great my dad thought the Iowa City music scene was.
Okay.
And one of the main bands on the scene at that time was a band called Mother Blues, which was the second version of that band, which was Patrick Hazel, Joe Price,
Okay.
and Bo Ramsey, Steve Hayes, Rick Sicalo. It's funny how just kind of thinking the way that you might know Hazel now from.
I definitely know the
through
name.
Jen. Well, you might know him through Jen Glockner, and
Oh, yeah,
and it's
yeah,
a-
yeah.
and it's
Mhm.
a whole another image that. A whole different image that comes from. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I grew up around. So my dad and Pat and my dad and Joe Price were really good friends when I was growing up. So when I was a kid, I would go. My dad would go. We lived in Wellman, and both Bo and Pat lived in Washington. So these are, small towns south of Iowa City,
Right.
both in Washington County. And so I would go to like Brighton or Parnell or wherever there'd be a dance hall, and we'd see Mother Blues, and there'd be like 2,000 people. This was in the mid '70s when, when a band like that could still, tour
Right.
300 nights a year and live in a bus and tour around the Midwest, which is what they did.
Yeah.
And
And you're going to see them.
yeah,
How
we
old
would-
are you?
I was 8, 9.
Okay. Wow.
10, and then all through junior high school. I got less interested in hanging out with my dad, as you do.
Yeah, of course.
But so later, so my dad ended up writing a piece about Joe Price, Bo Ramsey, and Pat Hazel.
Okay.
Because these were the three kind of main guys in this Mother Blues band, and Ramsey left. Quit or got fired, depending on who you ask, in the mid '70s, and then started his own band.
Yeah.
And then Hazel and Joe stayed with Mother Blues a few years, and they went their own ways later. But so my dad wrote this book length thing about these guys, and just about
Okay.
being artists in Iowa and being kind of independent artists and musicians, and it was obviously something that fascinated my dad a lot. But his portrait of Ramsey was not flattering.
It wasn't.
No,
Oh,
and
shit.
Ramsey is not a very friendly fucker. Let's
Okay.
face it. I mean, he's not the warmest individual.
I've never really met him. I know his son Ben. He's a nice
well,
guy.
Ben's a beautiful guy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so I mean, and I'm not saying Bo's not a nice guy. He's not a warm guy.
Okay.
And my dad is like a lunatic. And back then in the early mid '80s when he wrote this thing, he was a real spaz. And an autodidact. He's one of those guys who's read 37 million books, and he knows all these records.
Did he write professionally, or what was this for?
Yeah, he did write professionally, but not in the sense he wasn't a novelist. He spent a lot of time as a playwright, and
Okay.
had plays that were produced. And this was just for his own pleasure. He was just, he always wrote.
He just wrote it.
He
Okay.
He wrote my whole life. He still writes. He's
Awesome.
writing a fictional, a piece of historical fiction about Blind Lemon Jefferson and Tampa Red right now. Which
Oh,
is,
wow.
It's
That's cool.
the most interested I've seen him in writing since a novel he wrote in the mid '70s, which was the one novel that he published while he was into writing fiction.
Mm-hmm.
He left writing fiction right around that time, and then he's written a lot of nonfiction stuff, more into nonfiction as he got older.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it was not a very flattering portrait of Bo, I think, and I don't think really probably of any of them, because they were all acting like whiny twats, and like acting like they're, like they really mattered a whole bunch.
Right.
And they did. I mean, we all do in our lives.
Sure,
matter,
yeah.
But I think, my dad took the piss out of all of them in some way.
That's great.
And I don't think they liked it. But he was still friends with Pat and Joe. And strangely, so I gave Bo this tape, and I thought, I wouldn't hear from him again.
Right.
Hazel was the guy who he heard me playing some of these songs that I'd written at my parents' house. He'd stop by to see my dad, and
Yeah.
he dragged me out actually that day and got me my first gig, like a solo gig at this cheesy piano bar in Iowa City.
Oh, awesome.
That
What was that place called?
Weird Harold's. I mean, it was. Oh no, yeah, you wouldn't know.
Yeah,
It
that's
was
before my
It was
time.
here and gone. Yeah, it was there
Okay.
for probably 6 months in 1991, 92.
Yeah.
But it was the first place I ever played, and it was. Funny to think about, but
Yeah, for sure.
So Hazel, so I kind of approached Pat and said, he's a piano player, a great piano player, and I asked him, if he would kind of mentor me, not in so many words, but
Right.
and he basically was like, "Fuck you," like I'm a blues man and we blues man. And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" I mean, like that was literally his whole thing was like, "No, you got to learn it yourself, and you got to go out get some knocks and pay your dues.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
That.
Okay.
So Bo, got back to me and he was like, oh, I thought those songs were great. And, I'd love to produce a record for you guys. And in the meantime, we had added another guitar player, which was this guy, Darren Matthews, who played slide guitar, which the two guitar players were kind of, one of the things that gave that band a kind of distinctive sound.
Yeah, for sure.
And, so I ended up, of course, Bo really was a mentor to me. I learned a lot about it, making records. I learned a lot about performing from him, more about what I don't want to do as a performer.
Yeah.
We're real different as people, and we're real different as performers. But we played in each other's bands for 10 years, and I mean, I spoke to Bo every day for, a dozen years. Literally every day for 12 years, multiple times a day, and then we had a falling out, and, I went years without talking to him at all.
You talked. You in touch
recently,
now?
yeah, we've
Okay.
gotten back in touch, and we had.
How'd that go?
It's I laugh when I think about it because Bo's like, Dave, I never see you anymore. It's like, no, yeah, for like the last
Fault is
7
that,
fucking
motherfucker?
years,
Yeah.
man. No, you don't see me anymore, do you? But it's good, man. I mean, that water's so far under that bridge, and
Totally.
to think that there's even, any weirdness, but there is, and
Yeah.
with some of the folks that were involved with Trailer Records, I know I'm probably getting ahead of myself there, but talking about that, but yeah, I mean there will probably always be some, with most of them none at all. So
Right.
but anyway, so I ended up working very closely with Bo, and yeah, he ended up shaping a lot about a lot of the things that I do and think about, this thing that has become a career for me, kind of by default.
Absolutely. And was it always was the first love always piano? Did you ever play anything else?
No, I started playing the piano. My grandpa was, so I said my mom grew up in New York and Boston. My grandpa led the house orchestra at a place called the Stork Club in New York,
Okay.
which was a famous Cafe Society club, along with like El Morocco, the Stork Club, a couple places. And like he opened and closed the Savoy and the Hilton in Manhattan. So he was
Okay.
a real
Jazz player then.
jazz pianist.
Okay.
He played, what they now kind of call Cafe Society. He was he left home in his late teens to play on vaudeville, and he played with Jack Teagarden, Pee Wee Russell were his two best friends on vaudeville.
Oh, no shit.
He played with some of the greats, and my grandpa is now kind of famous because he gave Bobby Hackett's first cornet. So Hackett was a prodigy guitarist and violinist in my grandpa's trio with Pee Wee Russell in 1933 on Cape Cod, so way early.
Okay, wow.
Hackett was 18, and Pee Wee Russell had been playing with Bix Beiderbecke, who had just died in St. Louis, where Russell was from, and they were drunk. They were both they were big drinking buddies, my grandpa and Pee Wee Russell, and very close friends. And so, yeah, they got drunk after a gig, and Pee Wee was like, "Hey, you buy a cornet, and I'll teach him to play like Bix." And of course, Hackett went on to be, one of the great,
Pretty big, yeah.
white cornet players in history. So, so my grandpa played, and my mom grew up until her parents divorced in New York around him till she was about 12, and so she sat me and my brother down at the piano when we were both real young. I think I was 3.
Okay.
My brother was 5, and I could pick out melodies and play right away. My brother had no interest, so I stuck with it, and my parents were dirt poor hippies living in a, literally a shack in, rural Iowa. But they got, an old upright piano. Half of the keys worked, and which is what I played till I was in like 7th or 8th grade. And, I went to this hippie place in Iowa City called the Music Shop, which was literally, kind of, college age and just out of college age folks. This is probably 74, 75. I took lessons there for a couple of years.
Okay.
And then nothing for a couple of years, and then the Prussel School of Music in Iowa City opened, which was a Suzuki Method classical school, and the second, I think, in America that did Suzuki Method.
Oh, wow.
And I went there from the age of 8 to 17 until I finished high school.
Okay.
So that was my background as a pianist, which, yeah, I mean...
Well, it's obviously taken off for you.
Well, I mean, I should be 10 times the player I am. I was a terrible, lazy, indifferent student. But
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I was literally always like one step from I felt like being kicked out of the school. I shouldn't say that. I'm saying literally a lot. Shit, that's probably, all in my head.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah. I wasn't a very diligent student. But
did you love the instrument even then?
I did. And the Prussel School was a great place. And Doris and Bill Prussel, the people who founded it, they're real old now. They still bless their hearts, play with their kids in Carnegie Hall every year. Great family of string players.
Okay.
The wife, Doris, always encouraged me, you know, even
Mhm.
though I was such a lousy student. And she always, she heard something, and, you know, she always encouraged me to stick with it, and probably kept me doing just enough
Sure.
to not get bounced out for a more deserving student. But yeah, I mean, and, you know, although I didn't learn anything, you know, I didn't start playing any popular styles of music till, you know, so I quit playing at 17 and went to
Mhm.
college and didn't touch a piano for 4 years.
Okay.
And then, you know, started playing again my senior year of college, and you know, 6 months later was playing shows. It was that quick.
Okay,
So I
wow.
never played any kind of, you know, popular music to speak of, you know, except improvising, you know, at the piano myself.
Right. Right.
I probably sounded like
And-
Yanni or something.
I was gonna say, okay, and what kind of
You know,
style?
I mean, whatever weird kind of neoclassical. I listened to a lot of, you know, classically based heavy metal at that time. So.
Oh, okay.
But I played the piano, so God knows. Yeah, it probably did sound like Yanni if you listen back.
Do you like Yanni?
No.
No.
In fact, I have no idea what he
Do you
sounds
know
like.
anybody that likes Yanni?
I don't think I know
either.
anybody that knows what he
He
sounds
sells
like.
records, though. I don't get it. Anyway, that's not what this is about. Okay,
as
so
you know.
you've been playing, yeah, as far as we know. That first solo show at the
Weird Harold's.
at Weird Harold's,
Yes.
yeah.
Actually, the Mill. I did a show at the Mill first, I should say.
Oh,
a
yes.
real legitimate place. Yeah.
Great place, still there.
Yes.
And then as far as I can tell, the years that I've known you, which is going on
A lot now. Yeah.
12, 15 years,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that, yeah. You've been a close friend to me and my entire family. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But in that time, I know that you've toured all around the Midwest, probably all around the country and beyond. But how has, do you think that living and touring and traveling Iowa specifically, or the Midwest specifically, has informed your songwriting at all?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for me, obviously, there's the stuff that's topical. You know, it's actually about, you know, the place.
Yeah, I guess that's why I asked, because I know there's a few.
And then there's just, you know, in the larger sense, you know, I mean, just the sense of place that informs us as writers, you know,
Mhm.
songwriters or any kind of writer. So there's those things going on. But I also think being in Iowa, you know, being a musician based in Iowa, there's this interesting thing that happens where you're outside the industry.
Mhm.
You know, even when I had, you know, this record label I had for 10 or 11 years, it was outside the industry. I mean, in the sense that it was here, you know, I mean, there is no industry here. So,
True.
you know, I mean, I lived in Nashville some of that time playing with this guy, Todd Snyder, who I played
Mhm.
piano with and played on a lot of his records. But, I mean, that everything in that town is informed by the industry, you know, in capital letters. And people's work is consciously, you know, informed by that. And
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just, to me, the most horrible thought to think about, you know, writing, you know, a song based on that kind of thing. Now, I'm sure there's more terrible things you can do, but being able to work in a place where the industry has, you know, has so little influence or so little, you know, of an influence that you can feel. That's you know.
Yeah.
I think it's a real positive. I mean, there's obviously downsides to it as well, and
Right.
but I mean, yeah, I mean, so I think it's always shaping your work if you're, you know, as a songwriter on all these different levels.
Definitely.
And, you know, then again, you know, there's the obvious things about, like, you're centrally located. I mean, it's an easy place to tour from.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I toured a lot more nationally in the early 2000s and then in the 90s. And then I had some personal problems, which kept me a little closer to home
Right.
for really, I mean, you know, a long period of time.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I'm just kind of shaking that off. I mean, I did some touring nationally with Todd and with other artists as a sideman, but doing my own thing. I mean, really, 2005, I kind of stopped working with a national agent, stopped having a publicist, stopped touring in that way because I needed to tend to problems,
Personal things.
personal
yeah, sure.
issues of my own making here. So. I mean, I think, to me, you know, living here is, I mean, it's where I'm from. It's a place that I love, and the people here. I mean, you mentioned earlier the fact that, you know, you and your whole family are close friends of mine. You know, there's the music connection. There's the connection outside of the music.
Yep.
All these relationships work on all these different levels, and to me, it makes for a very rich life as an artist, as a musician, as somebody that does what we do. To be able to have that as a part, you know, you're a part of a community.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a beautiful thing. And again, anything other than that is not interesting to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You've been you've been here so many times, and with DAAC Ruix, what we're doing here is, you know, sort of like a little section of the community, you know, like trying to do our own thing, but at the same time make it all inclusive. How do you feel about, like, when you play in Dubuque? Have you always had a warm reception? And like, do you
After the first time I came, it was through Bo. It was Bo introduced us, and it was through Steve at the Silver Dollar. And, and we came in as a trio without a drummer and the bass player, and it was a disaster. And
is that right?
We didn't come back. Sorry, we didn't come back for 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
It was such a disaster. In fact,
I don't think
there
I
was a
at that
storm
show.
and the power went out briefly. And Steve was like, "I'm going to declare this on my insurance as a loss." He's like, "You don't mind if I tell them that I paid you $1,000, do you?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do." The reason we don't have our whole band here and sound like we're supposed to, you prick, is because you fucking lowballed us. And so he ended up doing that. He did some fucking insurance fraud and actually declared that he lost all this money on the
Wow.
show. The only reason he lost money on the show is because nobody came to see us, which, you know, I can get behind.
Had
that
less
too.
to do with the storm and more to do with him not promoting it.
Yeah, or whatever.
Or whatever, yeah.
But then once we started, you know, I started coming back towards the very end of High and Lonesome, and the first iteration of you know, the band that I started after that, which I've always called the Body Electric.
Right.
And that and I've always played Dubuque since, and it's always been, yeah. I mean, when I had, again, my personal, you know, troubles that I had, it was. The police were involved, and it, you know about this, but it happened here in Dubuque, and I ended up spending some time kind of having my nervous breakdown and very publicly losing my shit. And I can't imagine a better place to have done it. The people here were so warm and forgiving, as far as I know, anyway. But yeah, no, it was a place where I got some kind of distance and was around people. Whom I cared about. I felt like, you know, some of whom anyway cared about me, and I didn't feel judged. And it was a place where I was able to come and lick, you know, some of the many deep wounds that I had acquired. So, you know, Dubuque will always have kind of a special place for me because of that as well. And, you know, I've made some good friends here, obviously.
Well, yeah, and like I was going to say, we have a lot of the mutual friends in this town. And
in Iowa City as well.
And in Iowa City as well, yeah. But I mean, in terms of them being forgiving, I mean, most of the people that we both know from this town have their own demons, and
yes,
you
but
know,
that doesn't always mean people are going to be, you know, cut you any slack.
I guess that's true.
You know, and there was plenty of people in my hometown that sure as shit didn't and weren't going to, and still don't.
I didn't. I
mean, most of that is again, it's water far under the bridge. But, yeah. There's still people that will never that will never work with me. Whatever. I mean, I could give a shit about those people. You know, obviously, you know, all those cliches are true. You find out who your true friends are at times like that. But yeah, I mean, Dubuque, you know, from the time that I started coming here, I met a lot of people with, despite the fact that in Iowa City where I live, you know, I was never given a whole lot of love by indie music types.
Okay.
I mean, I owned a record label that was as indie as it gets. I mean, I'd been an independent musician my entire life, except for the times working for Todd Snyder, where I did collect a check from a major label. But I mean, you know, that was what it was.
Yeah.
There's always been that great atmosphere here, I feel like, of people saying, hey, if we don't see something we like, we're gonna fucking do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And you know, and when I was growing up in Iowa City, even though I was not a huge fan of punk rock music, Iowa City was a great punk rock city, and a lot of the guys that I grew up with in Iowa City were actively involved in that scene, and there was a great DIY scene in Iowa City in the early mid-'80s.
Yeah, I would
there
agree.
There were some great bands around at that time, guys that I knew were in those bands. And there was some, I mean, there was a place called Amelia's where, you know, I saw Husker Du and the Replacements within like 6 months. I don't even know what years this would have been, probably 82 2 or 3,
Wow,
something
see,
crazy.
yeah, that's before me. I lived there for a while,
Permanent
too, when there was
hearing
the
loss
90s.
shows.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
sure.
seriously. And so
And Gabe's was around then too, right?
Gabe's,
Yeah, yeah.
was always there. And Gabe's was, still had people there that were, they would bring Muddy Waters, and then they would,
Oh, wow.
they would bring,
Nirvana, I know, played there in the early days.
yeah,
and-
but even before then, you'd have
Before then.
like Black Flag or whoever,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
bands like that at that.
It's a legendary place, for
yeah,
sure.
and also Iowa City, I think, the great promoters in Iowa City, the guy, Mike, I can't remember his last name, but he died in the early 80s, but he was there in the 70s. He didn't discriminate against kinds of music, because it wasn't a big enough market. So if you were, and that's another thing I learned. My dad is also has very eclectic taste.
Okay.
But I realized that, there's all these great kinds of music out there. And that was, my friends that were really into a certain scene, that was the one place where we tended to rub up against, have problems was, they were involved in something that it was a lifestyle. They were so passionate about it. It was more than just the music to them.
Okay.
And so, yeah, they didn't like a lot of the music that I liked. But for whatever, there was a lot of passion going on, and there was a lot of people doing stuff on their own. There was people writing stuff. They were doing, there was zines. There was all this stuff happening.
Yeah.
There was
Well,
people
that's
putting on
good.
shows. The Central was there, this great venue in Iowa City. That had amazing rock shows. So yeah, there was a lot of things going on. There was a lot of people doing that, and I got that same vibe in Dubuque. The city's not much smaller than Iowa City. I mean, there's similar sized town. There's
True.
a number of colleges here, so you have that same feel of being,
Well, I think geographically it might be a little bigger, isn't it?
I think
like,
Dubuque's got
population-wise?
Population-wise, I mean.
For
yeah,
sure.
Dubuque might be bigger, it's more spread out.
That's what I mean.
But
yeah,
I think
yeah.
Iowa City's like 70,000, Dubuque's like 60,000,
Yeah,
50,000.
okay, that sounds
But
right.
whatever. I mean, they're similar. Then there's that same kind of the same tension that happens in college towns between the local population and the
Yeah,
college
the
population,
townies and
the
the-
townies, and,
Yeah, for
and-
sure.
But those things can also produce great stuff because it brings interesting people to town that have great things to contribute. That
Right.
When they want to be a part of what's happening there. And I always was, there was always a lot of cool stuff happening in Iowa City when I was growing up. And and I always got that feeling here as well. And obviously, I mean, what you guys are doing here is really cool, a really cool thing.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it was quite as well, I don't know. I guess I was young, but like when I was in high school, it was vastly different. And it seemed like, most of the late night market was, cover bands
And I don't know as
stuff like
much
that.
about Dubuque then either because I wasn't coming up here
yeah, I
as
guess
often then.
probably not until the mid 90s or something.
Yeah, but I do know that ever since I came here, I met people that were like-minded and people that definitely were thinking outside, any kind of boxes.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's to me what makes anything, interesting.
Yeah. And it's come a long ways, like since those days.
And it's come a long way
For
just
sure.
since I've been playing here. So is Des Moines. I mean, I started playing Des Moines in the early 90s a
That's-
lot.
yeah,
And
we've talked about that
That's probably
before.
been the market where I played the most, more
Really?
than Iowa City, more than anywhere else. Yeah, Des Moines has definitely been, a couple of the guys from High and Lonesome were from there. I mean,
Mhm.
we were very actively involved in that music scene. And then in the early 90s, there was nothing going on.
Really?
And, in fact, the guys who started the Des Moines Music Coalition in 8035, one of those guys was High and Lonesome's first manager.
Uh-huh.
If you want to, that's what he called himself.
Well,
I don't know
yeah.
what that meant. But, I mean, in Des
The
Moines.
guy that drank your guys' beer. all the
Yes,
time.
yeah. And tried to, get
Collect some.
collect whatever he could
Right,
in
I gotcha.
the bargain. But, I mean, Des Moines got a lot going on, a lot of great young musicians there doing interesting things.
It does seem like it's come a long way,
all over the
too.
state, all over the state. In Cedar Falls got a couple cool bands. There's great stuff happening all over, I think. It's
Well,
great
that's
to
good.
see, at least from what I see.
It's nice to see, our little centralized state, growing. And us along with it, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and Trailer Records, the label that I had, that's what
Mhm.
we were, we put out music by Iowa artists. I mean, it was a little more limited by genre just because.
Sort of
I thought-
Americana.
yeah, it was an Americana thing, but that's
Mhm.
because I was running it by myself while doing 200 gigs a year, on the road. So which meant I wasn't going to do a good enough job at either one. But I mean,
Well,
you had
yeah,
to,
of course.
I had to have certain kinds of things I could focus on, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there was a lesbian folk singer from Ames, there was Joe
Okay.
Price from the planet whatever, Blues Don or wherever the fuck he
Right.
comes from, and Bo, and then Greg Brown got involved, and
Yeah.
the Pines did their first record, which I produced, on trailer, and there was a
Okay.
lot of interesting things happening in that 10, 11 years.
And then your first four, I guess, probably.
Yeah, yep.
First solo.
Yeah,
and
first solo, and the High and Lonesome records were on there as well, and
Okay.
so, and I remember going to.
You'll have to get me some of that early stuff.
Absolutely.
The earliest I have is maybe on Easy Street or The Big Night. I can't
Sure,
remember.
yeah, I'll give you all those. And then the Brother Truck records, which I love, the first couple.
Oh,
which,
that's right. Yeah,
which I
Chad
produced.
from here was in Brother Trucker, wasn't he? No. Who am I thinking of? Fireside Theater?
Oh.
No, that's a comedy thing.
Wait,
from
there's
the
Fire
60s.
Sale. There's a band called Fire Sale. No, they're from the Quad Cities.
I can't remember.
No. Yeah. Chad Widoff. No.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Different group of people, yes. But,
Okay.
Yeah. They were called Firewood Revival.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what made me think of them. I thought they were on trailer, I guess, for some reason.
No, I'm sure that. Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, I was friendly personally with a lot of the guys that were kind of hanging around those guys.
Okay.
So-
But they were running around Iowa City about
They
the same
were,
time,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's probably where I made the connection. And this new one, For Hire, which you sent me early tracks to, because
Yep.
we were going to,
Yes, we were gonna
for the
play.
people listening, we were actually thinking about getting together and playing, because Coop, your drummer, was thinking about moving, but
Yeah.
I'm glad he did not, because we were talking about earlier that you guys have like a chemistry that's pretty unparalleled.
Well, thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. But the new record's great. I love it.
Thank you very much.
And I was going to ask about, why there was such a long time between this one and the
Yeah,
last one, but I
yeah.
guess we sort of already covered that.
That's it. I mean, and it's a fair question. I mean, it was a long time between records.
It was. I mean, this one was
11 years.
2014,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah. 12 years, yeah.
12 years, yeah. So that's a long time.
Yeah, I was so frantic and busy the first 10 years of my career. And then, so,
I know, 'cause there's like boom, boom,
not
boom,
much
and then
happening in the last
93-ish or
92,
92
yeah,
up till about
92.
2002,
Yeah,
10 years,
yeah.
yeah. And this is the first one billed with you and the Body Electric?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that a reference to John McLaughlin?
No, it's funny because there's so many different references. It's a reference to the Walt Whitman poem.
Oh, okay.
I sing the Body Electric, but that's Whitman is such a huge influence on American culture, and I've had people. There was a song from Fame,
Yeah.
which is called the Body. I don't know if it's called the Body Electric or I sing the Body Electric. I have a song from my first record called the Body Electric, which is the one we were talking about that I'll give you. But
Yeah.
no, it's from the Whitman poem. But there's a lot of there's a famous Twilight Zone episode.
Oh, okay.
The Body Electric.
I think it's John McLaughlin. He has a
But yeah,
record called that too.
I'm sure he does. Yeah, but
something
they're all
like that.
references to the Whitman poem at one point or
Okay.
another.
I should have known that. I didn't though. Okay. Who recorded that For Hire? The new record?
John Sveck did most of the tracking.
Mm-hmm.
Some was done by Luke Tweedy, who has Flat Black Studios in Iowa City.
Yeah.
Does Will Whitmore's records.
I want to talk to him in here. Like a couple of people that I've had
Yeah.
on the show already have recorded with him.
And some with
Myself included.
with Mike Lust.
Oh yeah, Mike Lust. He's great.
Came to Iowa City to do some. Oh, they'll be at the farm.
Totally, Tight Phantoms, yeah.
Yeah, and the kids playing with Tight Phantoms now on second guitar.
Good, yeah.
So,
That's where I first met him too, was maybe his first show with the Phantoms.
oh, really?
Something
You didn't
like
meet him
that.
play with me before that?
I don't think I met him. I
Okay.
think I'd seen him play, but
In any case, yeah. So, there was a lot of tracking that was done. I did it. I had so in addition to the problems that I had with getting arrested and beating a lifelong drug addiction,
Right.
I also got then really sick with some unknown autoimmune disease, which they still have yet to know.
I remember that, yeah.
And spent about a year as sick as you could want to be or not want to be, and still kind of they say it's in remission. They don't know. They clearly don't know. So there's still issues there. But so we started to record and then I got sick again. So it was like there was some ups and downs at the end of it, and so it ended up taking a lot longer to finish this record than we thought it would.
Okay.
But most of the tracking was done at what was then called Minstrel Studios and is now called Earth Tone Studios with John Sveck in Iowa City, who's a guy who tracks like most of the recent Greg Brown records and Bo and Pietta's records and the Pines' new record.
Okay.
Those are all, he tracks them. They're usually mixed elsewhere, along with an amazing amount of great music that comes out of Iowa City. Obviously, a lot of younger folks have started recording with Flat Black, and Luke does a great job too. And
Yeah.
I don't understand the idea of competitiveness, because it's art and music, and there's no
Definitely
time
agree.
for that shit. But I know there's some of that comes up, and I think they're both amazing engineers, and I worked with both of them on this record.
Okay.
And they're both dear friends of mine.
Well, it sounds really consistent for having a couple of different people behind the console.
Well, thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, John did most of it, and John mixed it. And I will say, the kid and John worked real closely together on the mixes, and we almost pulled it to mix elsewhere. And John, said, "Hey, I really want it to mix this." And so he and the kid did. They really spent a lot of time, going
Okay.
back in and digging in. And so, I a lot of the credit goes to both guys. I mean, the kid co-produced it, Steven co-produced it with me, but they spent a lot of time in mixing it together,
Okay.
getting the stuff, a certain way. So.
Does Kid have much experience with the mixing before this? Or?
No, and I mean, he wasn't involved as an engineer.
Okay.
But he's done, he's done a lot. He interned with Steve Albini, who's a good friend of his.
Okay.
At Electrical.
Electrical audio. Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, he
That makes sense because he was in Pinebender for a while.
And he was, he was one of the first guys in Pinebender, and that was the connection to Steve, actually.
Gotcha.
So there's connections there as well, but he knows what he's doing. I mean, definitely. But I mean, John engineered it, and John was Steve's not an engineer. He knows, probably just enough to be dangerous as an engineer. But he's a great musician. A great musician. Stephen Howard, the kid. And plays, and that's him playing most of the lead guitar on this record.
Was that right?
And in fact, we had other guitar players. Will Kimbrough, who played with me with Todd Snyder, and who was playing with Emmylou Harris when we made this record.
He's blowing up a little bit.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, kind of.
Well, he played on all these songs. I mean, he basically played like 4 or 5 stringed instruments on every song and then sent them back to me.
Okay.
And a lot of it just was not happening,
Really?
What we were hearing. And so, the kid ended up saying, "Fuck this," and went home and woodshedded for a couple months on the guitar. And that's
That's
him
awesome.
On a lot of the lead guitar on that record. Yeah, it is.
Well, he's good. He's a great player.
He's a great
too.
musician in general, yeah.
For sure. How do you think? Are you happy with it?
I am.
You are?
I'm happy with the record. I mean, to me, records are they're documents. They're these songs, because I play so much live.
Yeah.
These songs continue to have a life. And so they have 2 lives. They have that life on the record, and then they have this other life. And so I try not to get too hung up. I could spend all my time beating myself up on records that I've made and how little I like them.
I know it's easy to do that.
But I mean, as far as it goes, I'm long over that kind of way of thinking anyway.
Sure.
But I'm real happy with it. And the guy who wrote the horn charts and led the horn section did, I thought, a fantastic job. And so I was these records also are they're as good as the musicians that are on there, the songs that you're playing. So
Yeah.
I really feel like I was blessed to work with great musicians and benefited from their great,
Fuck yeah.
their great musicality.
Absolutely.
And that's
It's
what it's
solid.
all about.
Yeah,
So,
it's a great record.
well, thank you, man.
Yeah. Do you have any tunes ready for the next record, or?
I've
thinking about a next record yet?
I've got a couple songs written, but we are starting a band. So me and the kid and Coop, a guy named Stevie Doyle, who both the kid and I played with a lot. He's from Chicago. He's a dobro player, lead guitar player, just a monstrous guitar player.
Okay.
And William Elliott Whitmore started a band called Middle Western.
Okay.
Will Whitmore will be playing a lot of bass,
Cool.
some guitar. The kid will be playing some bass, a lot of guitar. And so we're actually writing for a record for that band.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so we have a gig with this guy, Anders Osborne, in October down in Iowa City at a festival, or outside Iowa City.
I know him. What?
Yeah,
is he
he
like
was-
a soundtrack guy or something?
No, he played with Rick Danko for a long before Danko died.
Oh.
They did a lot of touring. I used to tour with the same agent in Europe with them, and that's
Okay.
how I first heard him. But I think he's from the South originally, but he's been out in New York for a while. I know a lot less about him than I should.
Okay.
But I know people that love his guitar playing.
Yeah.
And I think he's about my age, I would guess.
Okay, cool.
But former junkie, which explains all the touring he did with Danko.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Because when I was playing, I would come twice. I came after those guys, and they burned hospitals and doctors down all over right
man.
before I would. And people are like, oh, you can't go to the doctor. I'm like, what? So yeah, but he's cleaned up as well. And whatever.
Well, that's
yeah,
exciting.
But, yeah, that should be fun. So yeah, so that's what we're doing
I have
now.
to check his stuff out. I know I've heard the name before.
Yeah, and then and Stephen Howard, the kid, has written a bunch of songs on guitar, or he's got a bunch of riffs. So Will and I are writing lyrics for some of these things and for some stuff of our own.
Okay.
And then Will and I have done, a handful of gigs the last few years together in different places, and they've just been so much fun, and our voices work really well together.
Okay, so that was what I was going to
Yeah,
ask. You gonna switch off songs or
yeah,
harmonize?
We harmonize a lot, and
Awesome.
our voices just work great together. He's
I can't wait to
sings
hear
in a
that.
lower register. We both have kind of blown out sounding voices, but
Yeah.
for just sometimes two voices work well together, and our voices do work well together. So
Yeah, I bet.
so we're doing some older songs of ours
Uh-huh.
in kind of new arrangements, and then new songs that we both written, new songs that we're writing as a band. So, and then the plan is to go in, Luke Tweedy
Yeah.
bought a farm outside Iowa City near Lone Tree,
Mhm.
and he's opening this 2,500 square foot studio. So
Damn,
Flat Black is
awesome.
going to be like 10 times the size it used
Much
to be.
bigger, yeah.
Yeah, and so we're going to go down there and start recording pretty soon, and some of the stuff. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. But
Yeah, I'm excited.
we
to
had
hear
one
that.
rehearsal. We've done like a half a dozen gigs, and
Mm-hmm.
not with the 5-piece yet, but just every time we've gotten together, it's just been joy and smiley and having a ball. And
Yeah.
that's again, as we were saying before we started recording this, it's
Yeah.
if you're not having fun, you're in the fucking wrong line of work.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got no business doing it.
So we're all and Will and I, when we were first talking about doing something together, the whole idea was like we both play a lot,
Uh-huh.
doing our own things, and we were just both talking about how nice it would be to do something where it wasn't under either name.
Yeah.
And we could actually tour, make a record every once in a while with these guys that are our good friends,
Mhm.
whose musicianship we love, which all those guys fit the bill.
Yeah, that's a great
so
group
it's
of guys.
just kind of like, hey, these are like you guys are talking about doing down here. It's like a great group of people who we all admire each other,
Mhm.
good friends. We love to hang. So going
Yeah.
out on the road will be fun. And we love getting on stage and playing music together, so it's kind of a no-brainer.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
we both, I think, you get a little crispy kind of doing, even though I have been 12 years between records. I mean, it's still, at some point, it's nice to do something where you're not kind of worried about, doing your own thing and kind of getting enough work for your band and keeping the guys working and keeping enough work coming in and all that stuff. So this will be something different to just kind of be low pressure and low maintenance.
Yeah, for
Fun.
sure, man.
Yep.
So not 12 years for the next one.
No, I hope not.
Well, you look good, man.
Thank you.
That's good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you, John.
Um,
Thanks for having me.
Well, do you have anything else to plug, or you got a website or anything?
Well, I have a website, davezollo.com, and
Okay.
of course I'll be back here. But this was all kind of going to be, this podcast will be.
This will be airing probably in I don't know, a week or two. Probably
Okay.
it's going to be the first September one. So
Okay,
we already
good,
did two
yeah.
in August.
So will it be before I'm
It'll be-
back here, September 5th, right?
It'll probably be around that same
Okay,
time.
all right,
Yeah.
well, yeah.
But we'll send you a link for it.
Beautiful.
You have
And I'll post it on the website, of course.
Yeah, good. Out of curiosity, I wanted to ask you: do you have a favorite venue in Iowa that you constantly go back to? It's just one that like jumps into your head right off the bat when I ask you that.
Well, I mean, some of my favorites are no longer here. One of my favorites was Arenell for its brief time, which was here in
Yep.
Dubuque.
R.I.P. Well, it's still here, but pretty much
No,
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
anyway.
I think we can safely say.
Yeah.
There's been some great clubs that have opened. I mean, a lot of it also just goes back to my history. When High and Lonesome started, and we're just selling out clubs all over Iowa and in the Midwest. We were kind of the house band at Gabe's and the Yacht Club, kind of
Mhm.
two clubs in Iowa City, and we had some amazing times there. So
Yeah.
regardless
I love
of
that
how
place
those
too,
places
man.
were, it wouldn't matter. Like they'll always be kind of magical places because they were the first places where I really got to kind of chase this dream, play rock and roll on a stage for people that seem to give a shit at least.
Right.
And Gabe's then of course had all the history before. I mean, Gabe's is just
course, yeah.
one of those places where so many amazing people have played there. There's a number of clubs like that around Iowa, but that's what I would say.
Yeah. Even after Gabe's has changed hands so many
Well,
times.
it's not the
what do
same
you-
Gabe's.
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
'cause
no, it's
I,
not.
I,
the
I haven't
same.
really played there in
Yeah, no, it's not.
years.
It's not the same place, and I went years without playing there, and I played there again recently. But
just not the same.
No, but
Has to have the shitty bathrooms.
I'm very well. It's still got the shitty bathrooms.
Oh, that's true.
But I have to be cognizant of the fact too that I am that old guy now.
Yeah.
Who's saying, "Oh, this place was great in my day," and there was fucking 20 crusty dudes at the bar. Gabe's when I was there going, "You fucking whippersnappers don't know shit."
Yeah.
Gabe's used to rock
In the 70s,
So,
yeah.
exactly.
guess
So
that's true.
I got to be cognizant and make sure that I'm not that guy any more than you just are by nature.
Right.
By being around for 20 years, and when the look in 18-year-olds' eyes when they see me is just mortifying. It's like, fuck, is that the look that I get now from you fuckers? So it happens.
Yeah.
But
different generations come and go.
Absolutely, and that's beautiful. Man, the kids are all right.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. What are you doing when you're not playing? I know you got a son.
Spend a lot of time with my boy,
Yep.
and then we have a house, a big house. Actually, we've been putting a studio in there, a little recording studio. Finally.
Very nice.
And but I spent a lot of time with my son and just doing stuff, with my family.
Yeah, enjoying life.
Enjoying life, absolutely.
Good, man. Again, it's great to see you again.
Thank you, John. You too, man. Always
All right.
a pleasure.
See you next time.
All right, buddy.
Okay, Dave Zollo. I was glad to have him down here at the Ruix headquarters for a chat. It was really nice conversation. I actually haven't seen him in a while, and like I said, he's a friend of mine, so it was nice to talk. Again, his website is davezollo.com, DAVEZOLLO.com, and he's also on Facebook, both personally, and he has a fan page, David Zollo and the Body Electric, and he's also on Twitter at Dave Zollo. His new record, For Hire, is available in record stores, I guess. I'm sure you can get it through his website, or maybe just send him a message through Facebook. I'm sure you can get it online. We have it for sale at CDs for Change. I know that. So if you are in the Dubuque area and you want a copy of Dave's new record, I guess it's not that new anymore. It is about a year old, but it's his newest, and it is excellent. So I highly recommend picking up a copy. And then be on the lookout for his new band with William Elliott Whitmore called Middle Western. Looks like they're going to be entering the studio soon, so that'll be another great thing to look for. Don't forget, Salon Show, September 5th, and the DAAC Music Series 5 show, September 2nd. Thanks for tuning in, and I guess we're going to, as long as there are still people listening, we'll see you on episode 5.